The ranch stood quietly at the edge of the town, surrounded by open land, wooden fences, and wide skies. It had been there for many years, long before the nearby housing community was built. Cows grazed slowly in the fields, and the sound of wind moving through grass filled the air. For most people, the ranch was just part of the background. For one woman, it was a constant problem. Her name was Linda. She was the head of the homeowners association for the new neighborhood nearby. Linda believed rules were the most important thing in life. She followed them closely and expected everyone else to do the same. To her, the ranch did not belong next to a clean and organized community. She felt it ruined the image of the neighborhood. Every morning, Linda looked out from her house and saw the dirt road that passed by the ranch. That road had existed long before the community gate, but Linda believed it should now follow HOA rules. She often complained about trucks, animals, and workers using the road. In her mind, the ranch owners were careless and disrespectful. The ranch belonged to a man named Tom. He was a quiet person who enjoyed simple living. He had grown up around land and animals and preferred silence over arguments. Tom lived on the ranch with his wife Mary. Mary was calm, observant, and soft-spoken. She never talked much about her work or her past. She enjoyed early mornings, long walks, and fixing small things around the ranch. Most neighbors did not know much about Mary. They saw her as polite and distant. She waved when people passed and helped when asked, but she kept her life private. Tom respected that and never asked questions. Their marriage was built on trust and understanding. On one warm afternoon, a delivery truck arrived at the ranch gate. The driver was bringing heavy supplies needed to repair an old barn. The dirt road was narrow, and turning the truck required careful movement. Mary parked her pickup nearby to guide the driver and keep things safe. For a short time, the road was blocked. Anyone who lived near the ranch knew this happened sometimes. It usually lasted only a few minutes. Linda saw everything from her front window. She stopped what she was doing and stared hard at the scene. Her lips tightened as she watched the truck and Mary standing near it. In her mind, this was not a normal situation. This was a violation. She grabbed her phone and rushed outside. Linda walked quickly toward the edge of the community gate. She began taking pictures of the truck, the pickup, and the dirt road. She made sure to capture every angle. Her heart beat faster with excitement. She believed she finally had proof. She spoke loudly on purpose so nearby neighbors could hear her. She complained about blocked access and danger. She said the ranch people ignored rules again. Several neighbors stepped outside, curious about the noise. Linda called the police. Her voice sounded confident and sharp. She explained that someone was blocking access and refusing to move. She demanded officers come immediately. She mentioned the homeowners association several times, hoping that would add weight to her complaint. Mary noticed Linda from a distance. She could tell what was happening right away. Mary remained calm and focused on helping the driver finish the turn. She did not argue or raise her voice. When the truck was finally positioned correctly, she asked the driver to wait a moment. Tom walked closer, concerned but quiet. He trusted Mary to handle things the right way. He knew Linda enjoyed creating trouble, but he hoped it would pass quickly. Soon, the sound of a police car approaching filled the air. Red and blue lights reflected off nearby fences. Neighbors whispered among themselves. Some assumed the ranch had finally gone too far. Linda stood proudly with her arms crossed. She believed this was her moment. She expected the officers to order Mary away and issue a warning. She imagined telling the HOA board later how she had protected the community. The police car stopped near the dirt road. 2 officers stepped out. Their faces were calm and professional. One of them looked around, noticing the truck, the pickup, and the ranch gate. Linda rushed forward before anyone else could speak. She pointed toward Mary and began explaining loudly. She talked about blocked access and broken rules. She said she felt unsafe and ignored. Mary listened quietly. She did not interrupt or argue. She waited patiently as Linda finished speaking. One of the officers turned toward Mary. His posture changed slightly. His expression shifted from neutral to alert. He looked at her closely, then nodded with respect. Tom noticed the change and felt confused. Linda did not notice anything at first. She was too focused on her speech and her anger. Mary finally spoke. Her voice was calm and steady. She explained the situation clearly. She said the truck was there briefly and would move soon. She thanked the officers for coming. The officers listened carefully. One of them addressed Mary with a respectful tone. He called her by a title that caught Linda off guard. Linda frowned. Something did not feel right. The wind moved through the grass as silence settled over the group. Neighbors leaned forward, sensing something unexpected was about to happen. Linda stood frozen, unaware that everything she believed about this situation was about to change completely. The silence after the officer spoke felt heavy. Linda stood stiff, her confident posture slowly fading. She replayed the officer's words in her mind, trying to understand what she had just heard. The respectful tone was not meant for her. It was meant for Mary. Linda cleared her throat and stepped forward again. She tried to laugh lightly, as if there had been some mistake. She said there must be confusion. She reminded the officers that she was the head of the homeowners association and that rules had been broken. The officer listened but did not react the way Linda expected. He raised his hand gently, asking her to wait. He turned back to Mary and asked a short question. Mary nodded and answered calmly. Her voice was steady and clear. Tom watched closely. He had seen Mary calm before, but this moment felt different. There was a quiet strength in her posture that he had never fully noticed. The second officer glanced at his partner, then looked at Mary with respect. He asked if everything was under control. Mary said it was and thanked them for coming so quickly. Linda's face tightened. She interrupted again, her voice louder this time. She said the road belonged to the community and that blocking it was unacceptable. She insisted that action needed to be taken. The officer turned to Linda slowly. His voice was firm but polite. He explained that the road was public and had existed before the housing community. He said temporary stops for work were allowed. He added that no law had been broken. Linda shook her head in disbelief. She said the HOA rules were clear. She said she had authority in this matter. The officer listened, then replied calmly. He explained that HOA rules did not override city laws. He also said that making repeated complaints without cause could become a problem. The neighbors watching nearby began whispering again. Some looked surprised. Others looked uncomfortable. A few started to realize that Linda's complaint might not have been as solid as she believed. Mary stood quietly, hands relaxed at her sides. She did not look angry or proud. She simply waited. Linda finally noticed how the officers kept addressing Mary with respect. She narrowed her eyes and asked why they were speaking to her that way. Her voice carried suspicion now. The first officer paused for a moment. Then he answered honestly. He said Mary was well known to them. He said she had served the city for many years. Linda laughed sharply and said that could not be true. She said Mary lived on a ranch and fixed fences. She said that made no sense. Mary turned slightly toward Linda. Her expression remained calm. She spoke gently but clearly. She said people can live simple lives and still carry serious responsibility. The officer added that Mary was the police chief of the city. The words landed like a sudden gust of wind. Linda's face drained of color. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The neighbors froze. Some gasped softly. Others stared at Mary in shock. The quiet woman they had barely noticed now seemed like a completely different person. Tom felt a mix of pride and surprise. He knew Mary had an important job, but he had never pushed for details. Seeing the respect from the officers made him understand her world a little better. Linda stepped back slowly. Her phone slipped slightly in her hand. She looked around, hoping someone would confirm this was a joke. No one did. Mary did not smile or celebrate. She simply nodded once and thanked the officers again. She said the truck would be gone shortly and apologized for any inconvenience. The officers nodded and said there was no issue. They turned to leave, but one of them stopped and faced Linda again. He reminded her to be careful with future calls. He said emergency lines should be used responsibly. Linda tried to speak, but her voice cracked. She said she was only doing her duty. The officer replied that duty should be guided by fairness. The police car drove away slowly. The lights turned off. The dirt road grew quiet again. The delivery truck finished its turn and began moving out. The driver thanked Mary and waved goodbye. Soon, the road was clear. Neighbors began drifting back to their homes. Some avoided eye contact with Linda. Others looked at Mary with new respect. A few offered small nods before leaving. Linda remained standing near the gate, frozen. Her confidence had disappeared. She felt exposed and embarrassed. For the first time, she realized she might have crossed a line. Mary walked back toward the ranch with Tom beside her. Tom asked softly why she never told anyone. Mary smiled gently and said she liked her quiet life. She said titles were not everything. As they reached the ranch house, Mary paused and looked back at the land. She said the ranch reminded her to stay grounded. She said power should never change who a person is. Tom nodded. He understood her better now. Behind them, Linda watched from a distance. Her world felt different. The rules she had clung to so tightly suddenly felt smaller. She wondered how many times she had judged others without truly knowing them. The ranch returned to its calm state. The wind moved through the grass again. Life continued, but the balance between the ranch and the neighborhood had shifted. And Linda knew that the next time she reached for her phone, she would think twice. The next morning arrived quietly at the ranch. The sun rose slowly over the open land, casting a soft light across the fences and fields. Tom stepped outside early, as he always did. He checked the animals, walked the boundary, and breathed in the calm air. Everything felt normal, yet something had changed beneath the surface. Mary joined him after a while. She carried 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Tom. They stood together without speaking for a moment. The events of the previous day still rested in the air, unspoken but present. Tom finally spoke. He said the neighborhood would probably talk now. Mary nodded. She said people often talk when something surprises them. She did not sound worried. Across the road, Linda did not sleep well that night. Her mind replayed the scene again and again. The words police chief echoed in her head. She felt embarrassed and angry at the same time. Not at Mary, but at herself. Linda prided herself on control. She liked knowing rules and enforcing them. That moment had taken control away from her. For the first time, she questioned whether she had gone too far. That morning, Linda opened her email and saw messages from HOA members. Some asked what happened. Others expressed concern about her calling the police. One message suggested the association should avoid conflict with the ranch. Linda felt a tightness in her chest. She had always believed she spoke for the community. Now she was not so sure. Later that day, a small group of neighbors gathered near the community entrance. They spoke quietly about the ranch and about Mary. Some admitted they had judged the ranch unfairly. Others said they never had an issue and wondered why it became such a big problem. One neighbor mentioned how Mary always waved and helped when someone needed it. Another recalled seeing her help an injured dog on the road months ago. Slowly, a different picture of Mary began to form. Mary spent the day fixing a broken gate with Tom. She worked with steady hands and quiet focus. A few neighbors passed by and hesitated. One of them finally stopped and greeted her. He thanked her for handling the situation calmly. Mary smiled and said there was nothing to thank her for. She said she just wanted peace. The neighbor nodded and walked away feeling lighter. In the afternoon, Linda stood at her window again. She watched Mary and Tom working together. She noticed how calm they looked. There was no anger in their movements, no sign of pride or victory. Something inside Linda shifted. She realized that Mary never tried to embarrass her. Mary could have spoken loudly or used her position to shame her. She did not. That restraint made Linda uncomfortable in a new way. Later that evening, Linda walked toward the ranch gate. Each step felt heavy. She rehearsed words in her head, but none felt right. When she reached the fence, Mary noticed her and stopped working. There was an awkward pause. Tom stayed back, giving them space. Linda spoke first. Her voice was quieter than usual. She said she came to talk, not to argue. Mary nodded and listened. Linda admitted she reacted too strongly. She said she felt threatened by change and by things she could not control. She said the ranch reminded her that not everything fit into neat rules. Mary listened patiently. When Linda finished, Mary thanked her for being honest. She said fear often hides behind anger. She said understanding makes things easier for everyone. Linda looked down. She said she was sorry for calling the police and causing a scene. She said she did not know who Mary was and made assumptions. Mary replied that knowing titles does not matter as much as knowing people. She said respect should come first. They stood quietly for a moment. The tension eased. Linda asked if there was a way for the ranch and the community to coexist better. Mary said communication was a good start. She suggested letting the HOA know in advance when large deliveries were coming. She said the ranch could do that. Linda agreed. She felt relief for the first time since the incident. As Linda walked back, she felt changed. She realized leadership did not mean control. It meant listening. Over the next few days, small changes appeared. The HOA sent out a message encouraging respectful communication. Complaints slowed. People waved more often when passing the ranch. Tom noticed the difference. He said things felt calmer. Mary agreed. One evening, as the sun set, Mary stood alone by the fence. She thought about her job, her authority, and her quiet life. She felt grateful that she could balance both. She believed strength did not need to be loud. The ranch settled into silence again. The animals rested. The road lay empty. And across that road, people were learning that power does not always look the way they expect. A week passed, and the town slowly returned to its usual rhythm. The ranch stayed calm, the neighborhood stayed busy, and the road between them felt less tense. Still, the incident had left a quiet mark on everyone involved. Mary continued her daily routine. She woke early, helped Tom with chores, and spent time walking the land. Her phone rang from time to time with work matters, but she handled those calls privately. She liked keeping her two worlds separate. One was about responsibility and leadership. The other was about peace and balance. Tom noticed how neighbors behaved differently now. Some waved more openly. Others slowed their cars when passing the ranch. A few even stopped to chat. It felt strange but welcome. Linda, on the other hand, felt watched. Not in a harsh way, but in a thoughtful way. People listened to her more closely now. They questioned ideas instead of accepting them without thought. At first, this made her uncomfortable. Then she realized it might be a good thing. During an HOA meeting later that week, Linda stood before the group. She spoke carefully, choosing her words with more care than before. She talked about cooperation and respect. She mentioned that the ranch was part of the town's history and deserved understanding. Some members nodded. Others looked surprised. A few smiled. One member asked if Linda had changed her view. Linda paused before answering. She said she had learned something important. She said rules matter, but people matter more. That meeting ended without arguments. For the first time in months, Linda felt proud for the right reasons. Meanwhile, a a small issue arose near the ranch. A broken waterline near the road caused minor flooding. It affected both the ranch and the nearby homes. In the past, this might have caused blame and complaints. This time, things unfolded differently. Mary noticed the problem early. She called the city department and explained the situation clearly. She did not use her position or demand special treatment. She simply shared facts. Workers arrived quickly. Tom helped guide them through the ranch land. Neighbors came out to watch. Some offered tools. Others offered water. Linda arrived too. She stood back at first, unsure of her role. Mary noticed her and walked over. She asked Linda if she could help by informing residents about temporary road limits. Linda agreed. They worked together quietly. No tension. No raised voices. By afternoon, the problem was fixed. The road dried. The water flowed properly again. People thanked both Mary and Linda. The moment felt simple but meaningful. It showed what cooperation could look like. Later that evening, Linda sat alone on her porch. She thought about how different things felt now. She realized she had spent years guarding control instead of building trust. That realization felt heavy, but also freeing. At the ranch, Tom and Mary shared dinner outside as the sun set. Tom said the town felt different. Mary agreed. She said change often starts with uncomfortable moments. Tom asked if she ever regretted staying quiet about her job. Mary shook her head. She said her work spoke for itself. She said respect earned quietly lasts longer. The next day, a local paper published a small story about cooperation between the ranch and the neighborhood. It did not name anyone specifically. It focused on community effort and calm leadership. Mary read it and smiled. Linda read it too and felt relief. It did not feel like a spotlight. It felt like closure. Days turned into evenings. The ranch stayed peaceful. The neighborhood stayed active. The road between them became just a road again. One afternoon, a child from the neighborhood wandered near the fence, curious about the animals. Tom invited the child's parents over. Soon, a small group gathered. Mary explained how the ranch worked and answered questions patiently. Laughter filled the air. Something simple had opened a door. Linda passed by and stopped. She watched families talk and learn. She felt a warmth she had not felt in a long time. She walked over and joined the conversation. No titles. No authority. Just people. As the sun lowered, Mary looked around and felt content. She believed that strength showed best when it created space for others. The ranch did not change. The community did not change overnight. But understanding had grown. And that understanding made everything stronger. The town moved into a quieter season. Days felt slower, and evenings carried cooler air. The ranch remained steady, grounded in routine and patience. Tom continued his work with the land, finding comfort in familiar tasks. Mary balanced her time between the ranch and her duties, always calm, always thoughtful. The changes that followed the incident were not loud or dramatic. They were subtle, almost gentle. People spoke with more care. Complaints became conversations. Small misunderstandings were handled before they grew into problems. Linda felt the change deeply. She no longer rushed to enforce rules the moment something felt wrong. Instead, she paused. She listened. She asked questions. This new way of leading felt strange at first, but also lighter. One afternoon, Linda walked toward the ranch again. This time, she did not feel nervous. She carried a folder under her arm, filled with notes and plans. She had an idea and wanted Mary's opinion. Mary welcomed her with a smile. They sat near the fence, looking out at the open land. Linda explained her idea of organizing a small community day. She wanted neighbors to learn more about the ranch and its history. She believed understanding would prevent future conflict. Mary listened closely. She liked the idea. She said it would help people see each other beyond labels and assumptions. Tom agreed and offered to help prepare. The planning brought people together. Neighbors volunteered to bring food. Some offered to help clean the area. Others shared stories about how the town used to be before the new homes were built. The day arrived under a clear sky. Families gathered near the ranch. Children laughed and asked questions. Adults talked, shared food, and listened. Mary spoke briefly, not as a leader, but as a neighbor. She thanked everyone for coming and said community was built through respect. She kept her words simple and sincere. Linda stood nearby, watching. She felt proud, not of control, but of connection. The event ended with smiles and tired feet. People left feeling closer than before. The ranch felt like part of the town, not separate from it. That evening, Mary and Tom sat together, watching the sun fade behind the fields. Tom said he never expected such a simple place to teach so many lessons. Mary agreed. She said life often teaches quietly. Linda walked home with a calm heart. She knew she had grown. She understood now that leadership was not about standing above others. It was about standing with them. In the days that followed, the town continued forward. Problems still came, as they always do, but they were met with patience and fairness. Mary returned to her quiet routine. She never sought attention. She believed true strength was shown through steady actions, not titles. The ranch remained open and peaceful. The road stayed clear. And the people who once stood divided learned how powerful understanding could be. The story did not end with applause or victory. It ended with balance. And for everyone involved, that balance meant everything.